All right, so good evening. Now let's continue the principle 20. So making sense of assessment data depends on clear, appropriate, and fair interpretation. All right, when we say clear interpretation, so we have clear interpretation refers to the ability to understand and explain the assessment result in a straightforward and understandable manner. So when we make assessment tool, so of course we have to set clear interpretation to our student. Next one is appropriate interpretation. When I say appropriate interpretation, so the interpretation should align with the intended objectives of the assessment and provide relevant insights that can guide appropriate actions. So when you make assessment tool like rubrics, checklists, kung sa pa na diyang assessment tool, you have it should be aligned with the intended objectives or learning outcomes that you are given to your students. Next one is the fair interpretation. So when say fair interpretation, so refers to the equitable treatment of all individuals or group that involves in the assessment process. So like what I said in principle 19, you have to avoid bias. So fair interpretation to different groups. Next one is in practice, achieving clear, appropriate, and fair interpretation of assessment data involves several key steps. First one is understanding assessment objectives. So by clearly defining your purpose and goals of the assessment help guide the interpretation process. So this include understanding what specific skills or knowledge the assessment aims to measure and what decision will be made based on the result. So when you make assessment, of course, you have to understand your assessment objectives as well. For you to be guided with the process. And the next one is addressing bias, like what I said in Principle 19 also. So steps should be taken to identify and minimize biases in the assessment process. So including the design of the assessment, scoring procedures, and interpretation of result. So we all know that we have diverse learners. So we have to use also differentiated assessment tools. Next one is using multiple data sources. So do not rely on one test result. So relying on variety of assessment sources, I mean assessment data sources, for example, like what Sir Greg told us. So like Principle 18, the formative assessment and summative assessment. And then classroom observations can provide or a more comprehensive understanding of students' performance and educational outcomes. And then tips for teachers, what was the assessment intended to measure? So when making assessment tool, so you have to ask yourself, what was the assessment intended to measure? How are the assessment results to be used? Or are the results aligned to the goals for which the assessment was designed? So what comparisons are the assessment data based on? Are children being compared to one another, or instead are children's responses being directly compared to samples of acceptable and unacceptable responses that the teacher or others have provided? Or what are the criteria for cut points or standards? Are the children's scores being classified using standard or cutoff such as pass, fail, category, or letter grades? Like mayroon ka maghatag kag A, maghatag kag B, C, D, or and so on. Or some indicators of satisfactory or unsatisfactory performance. Next one is the conclusion. So for the conclusion of Principle 20, so by adhering the principle of clear, appropriate, and fair interpretation, educators and policymakers can make well-informed decisions that support students' learning and improve educational practices. So the main point of Principle 19 and 20 is you have to, like say, making assessment that is grounded by psychological sciences. So dili lang ta maghimo-himo I mean, we're going to give an group activities or activities to the student without making kanang assessment tool. So kung wala man gyud assessment tool, probably naa gyud mo gawas ang bias diha. So we have to um have or use assessment tool in giving activities or group activities to our student, because assessment is very essential or crucial to our learners, not only for the preschool but also for the elementary, or let's say not elementary but also to all the students in different grade level. All right, so that's all for my reports. Do you have any questions, teachers? Wala na?
None so far,
And
Chair.
All
so
right,
far,
so I have a
Chair.
question, teacher. So why do we need to assess students, in your own opinion? Let's have Ma'am Pretzel. Why do you think we need to assess students?
Okay, okay. So we need to assess students uh, for us to know if the students learn.
Exactly. Thank you. Yeah, of course, by using assessment tool like formative assessment and also summative assessment, we can know if that a certain student or pupil learn about what has been discussed. So makanota, and also we can know their weaknesses and strengths. Unsa ma-improve sa nato si student, or ma-enhance nato ilahang, or matagan nato silang feedback kung unsay angay nila dapat i-improve. Now, question number 2, how assessment help teachers and learners? Sir Greg?
Okay, so assessment help teachers and learners also to, of course, assess individuals what do you call this one, individuals learning, especially in teachers, like as what you have said, teacher April, like the being biased. So we have to use assessment tool, not only giving high grades to this specific group or specific students. So we have to use assessment tool in order to avoid the being biased, and also the learners. We assess the learners to know the weakness, or where also their strengths in these topics or subjects.
Very good, Sir Greg. Now we know, Jod. All right, thank you so much. So now let's have Ma'am Jerly for the continuation of the report about learning, teaching and learning environment. Ma'am Jerly? Makita ra nimo, sir.
Wala ka kay tingog, Sir
Dili
Jerly.
dili ka madunggan, sir.
Good evening, Sir Adrian. Good evening, teachers. I am Jerly. I'm going to report the teaching and learning environment. So, what is teaching? What is first is what is teaching and learning environment? Teaching and learning environment refers to the physical and social psychological conditions in which teaching and learning takes place. It encompasses the classroom or educational setting, as well as the interaction with process and atmosphere that contribute to the learning. Okay, what is a learning environment? So learning environment refers to the diverse physical locations, context, and cultural in which students learn. Students may learn in a wide variety settings, such as outside of school, locations, and outdoor environments. Here are the components of an effective learning environment. Developing a total learning environment for students in a particular course or program is the most creative part of teaching. There is also tendency to focus on either physical institutional learning environment, such as classrooms, lectures, theaters, and labs, or in the technologies used to create online personal learning environment. We will also include characteristics of the learners, the goal for teaching, the activities that will best support learning, the assessment strategies that will best measure and drive learning, the cultural that induces the learning environment. A learning environment in kindergarten. A positive and caring classroom environment is important for student learning at any age. One is planning your classroom environment is one of the most exciting parts of being a teacher. It can be daunting to fit everything you want into your space while making it feel warm and inviting. We will this provided following best practices to help guide your decision as you set up your classroom. Teacher builds supportive and caring relationship with students. Learning content and strategies are culturally responsive. Teacher moves around to support learning in a physical space is neat, orderly, and organized for flexible grouping. Routines and procedures are communicated clearly and consistently. For kindergarten classroom should have a carpet for group instruction, library. There should be a math manipulatives, colorful and bright walls, students access to classroom materials, students take desks, centers set up around the rooms, and abundance of words, letters, and numbers. Student work on the walls, tables for small group instruction. Center instruction is where the teacher is a center of knowledge and in charge of learning. Students are usually passively receiving information. While in student-centered instruction has been defined most implies an approach to learning in which learners choose not only what to study, but also how and why that topic might be of interest. That's all for my topic. Thank you, teachers.
Thank you, Teacher Jerly.
Thank you, teacher.
Yeah, so teachers, do you have any questions?
Wala, Chair.
All
No,
right,
so
so
far.
thank you so much, Sir Adrian and classmates for listening. So that's all for our report about Principle 17 to Principle 20. So if you don't have any questions, so that's all. Thank you for listening. Manato, Chair. Dili mo ni
If,
ma-post.
if